That's some absolutely wonderful examples of what this farmland preservation and how it relates to the green infrastructure that we're talking about today. And I think that Lancaster County can be this just a great example of what we can strive for. I was amazed when I heard that the ag zoning in that area was one house per 25 acres when we run across one house per 2 acres in much of our ag zoning locally, which I find in conflict of what that really means. So, more importantly, I think one of the things that Tom mentioned was we can't really save our farms, and to extend that, we can't really save our green infrastructure without looking at and saving our cities. They're connected. They go hand in hand. We have to look at both of them in order to deal with these bigger issues that, these dire issues that Tom alluded to in answering that question. I'm not sure if my slides work, but just to introduce myself, I'm Mark Miller. I work for Naderveld. I am an architect who, about 5 years ago, changed my practice and stopped practicing architecture and moved into trying to do planning and looking at the exact same things that Professor Daniels talked about, smart growth, new urbanism, trying to make compact development in West Michigan, and in fact regionally and nationally. And in that time, since then, I've taken over, or I'm about to take over, the Grand Valley AIA presidency. So I'm president-elect at this point in time. So today, I'm here primarily as a, or at least partially as a representative of the AIA, as president-elect. But also, I'm here because of my passion for what we're talking about. And I live in the city. I live on a 40 by 130-foot lot that I can walk to downtown Grand Rapids from. But I live there not only because I believe in the city, but also because I believe wholeheartedly in green infrastructure. And I believe that me living there allows something else somewhere else to be preserved. And like many of my neighbors in Heritage Hill, we all love nature. But we choose to live there in Heritage Hill in an urban environment so that we can preserve the greenways and the green infrastructure. I'm here also to introduce the charrettes that were done as part of the West Michigan Strategic Alliance and the Grand Valley AIA cooperation to deal with some of these green infrastructure issues, but also to deal with our built environment, because again, they go hand in hand. These urban design charrettes were done. There was 3 of them done in 2007, earlier this year. They were multi-jurisdictional. They were throughout the region. And this is one of these endeavors that, as we talk about green infrastructure, and we talk about some of these theories of green infrastructure, this is something that, is out there. We did it. We worked with municipalities. The municipalities worked together to create these things. And it really started to bring things together and to actually try to implement some of these things so that we can indeed move forward and do progress with green infrastructure, with regionalism, with regional planning, and even localized planning in some cases. This was also part of the AIA, the national AIA's 150th birthday, where we had a Blueprint for America. We wanted to celebrate our anniversary and deal with local issues, deal with regional issues, and bring planning to the forefront of our profession, because for so long we've kind of relegated planning to traffic engineers and to planners putting dots on maps. But architects have the ability to do planning. They do planning of buildings every single day. They can easily take those skills and take them at a larger venue and create quality planning. And I think that that's been proven. I've proven that at a small scale, but I think it was proven in these charrettes, and we can see that as we talk about these charrettes today, what happened and how it happened, and the importance of bringing those design professionals to the forefront. Not just architects. We had traffic engineers involved. We had landscape architects involved. We had landscape architects involved. And all of those people together, working with these municipalities and representatives of municipalities and stakeholders, really work together to create this synergistic work session that really, in 3 days, created some wonderful avenues for future development opportunities and preservation opportunities within those regions. The three of them were, first of all, there was 3 of them done in 2005, but this year's, there was one done on South Division Avenue between 36th and 60th Streets, and it dealt with 2 municipalities, the city of Kentwood and Wyoming, the city of Wyoming. And also they brought in the Rapid because the importance of this corridor with transit was part of the Charrette process. So there was 2 municipalities working together with the design team to come up with some concepts for that area. The next one was at a much larger scale, and amazingly there were 5 townships involved in this North Muskegon County charrette: Blue Lake, Dalton Township, Fruitland, Laketon, and Muskegon Townships. And all of these townships were in this very room working together with the design professionals to come up with some design plans for what to do in the future, because we can't save all of our farms and all of our infrastructure, green infrastructure, without looking at how our development patterns are working. And this is where the groundwork is being laid for some of that as we move forward in the future. And then the third one was the Holland Gateway, which was, again, a joint effort between Holland Charter Township and the City of Holland. And I think it can't be underscored enough that there were these municipalities who all share the same kind of concerns in a room, this room, working together to come up with a common solution for their problems and looking for their assets, which was the major focus of these charrettes, looking at the hidden assets, bringing them out, and figuring out how to move forward with those assets. These are some of the photographs. You can see it was in this room. There were 3 areas, one here, and one here, and a lot of action happening during those 3 days of that charrette. The participant teams, there's a lot of people involved in all of these. There was a lot of volunteers through the AIA Grand Valley and through the other professional organizations, and then also obviously some of the stakeholders, particularly the people from the communities who were here every single day working through some of these problems. And if there's anybody here in the audience, I know there's at least a couple of, if you could stand up who was involved in these charrettes and just show yourselves and show the community who was involved with these. There was great participation, and a lot of really good ideas came out of this. Ideas that would not have come to fruition if we were all sitting in a room separately. And I think that's one of the great things about a charrette. For those of you who don't know what a charrette is, it's a very intensive, usually 3 to 7 day work session where there's a lot of public input and dialogue that goes on between the stakeholders and the professionals. And at the end of the day, at the end of whatever period you have, you come up with some solutions to these problems. You bring out the assets, you bring out the strengths, and try to deal with some of the weaknesses in the process. So again, there was the Holland Gateway team, there was a Division Avenue team, and the Muskegon County team. And you can see the long list of names that were involved in all of those projects. And without going any further from my end of things, I want to introduce the guy from the Grand Valley AIA who really spearheaded this. And I honestly can say that without him, this wouldn't have happened. I mean, it was his idea. He worked strongly creating the necessary dialogue between not only our organization, but other organizations, and most importantly, the West Michigan Strategic Alliance, and bringing this partnership together. So without any further ado, Bob Daverman from Progressive A&E.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to move at a little bit faster pace here because everybody is hungry and we're moving towards this. But kind of quickly, I wanted to give a quick story of how this got created. This was the 2nd year in it, and I had been already involved in the West Michigan Strategic Alliance, and as a part of the past president of AIA, it was really the idea that was ingrained in me by WMSA of creating a regional mindset that allowed that sort of thought to permeate and see, could we do this also with our chapter and bring the Lakeshore architects together? And it was coincident with Public Act 226, the Joint Municipal Planning Act, signing into fruition in 2004 that got us started with all these possibilities. The essence of the WMRUD charrettes, as we call them, the West Michigan Regional Urban Design Charrettes, are fundamentally that they're multi-jurisdictional. Again, the Public Act allowed us to move into that framework of mind, and admittedly, I think the planners would say initially it was a little, maybe, I don't know, maybe scary is the wrong word, but certainly they were thinking of what they were dealing with within their own framework of responsibility, and this was new. But it was a place for us to come together and play, and to really understand that we're learning something together, and to see how that might go. How are the teams picked for this one that you have right here? Basically, through an RFP process, they submitted applications. All of this information is currently and still online at aiagv.net. And our charrettes will be online there shortly, and you can download them for free right there and see them. You're not going to see all of them today by any stretch of the imagination. With that, I would like to ask our team to please come join me here. Phil Meyer and John Mersman. Phil and John are on the Holland team. Phil Meyer, the Director of Community and Neighborhood Services for the City of Holland, and John Mersman, the Planning and Zoning Administrator from Holland Charter Township. Also, Roland Crummel, who's representing the 5 townships of the Joint Planning Commission that was formed. He is the supervisor of Laketon Township. And also we have on the Division Avenue team Lisa Golder, who is the Economic Development Planner for Kentwood, Tim Cochran, the planner from the City of Wyoming, and Tom Williams, who is their consultant with DMJM Transportation, DMJM Harris, a transportation consultant, nationwide, international, frankly. The format of this is really intended to be talking more about the process. But before we get started, I wanted to have the PowerPoint start, and we will start with the Holland Gateway, and you all have speakers here, so if the Holland team would pick up theirs, and you can clue through this. They each have about 4 minutes or so to quickly give a perusal so you get a sense of the area, and then we'll hand it off to the next team and so forth.
Hi, I'm Phil Meyer. I'm with the City of Holland. Just for Professor Daniels' information, you can convince your son to go from architecture to planning. I'm a Penn graduate. I went there as trying to be an architect and became a planner. We were told we need to move quickly, so forget I said that. What I want to talk about just very quickly is the history of collaboration between the City of Holland and Holland Charter Township. Mayor McGeehan was here earlier. If you would ask him about collaboration, he'd reach into his pocket and pull out a 2 or 3 page single-space list of all of the various things that have been done in collaboration between the 2 communities. What's missing on that list, or what has been missing up until the last couple of years, has been a collaboration on land use kinds of issues and planning issues. There is really an opportunity in the area. I call it environmental design because I think it touches on all of the things we've been talking about. One of the obstacles to that has been stereotypes about what people in the township do or believe in, or what people in the city believe or do. Those sorts of things have been a real obstacle for us. And we were fortunate enough back in 2005 to be part of the first charrette process. And that was with the same team in terms of community members, the same folks coming together. And it began a process for us looking at a larger area of the city and township. This most recent process this spring gave us an opportunity to really step into more specifics in a more targeted area. The planning challenge that we've been dealing with is a collaboration in addressing the challenges and opportunities in a critical corridor and neighborhoods that really fall on on the area, partly in the city, partly in the township. It's an area where cooperation really is absolutely necessary to be able to make good things happen in that neighborhood. What I'll do, there were some objectives we had. One was increasing involvement, and these are objectives in addition to sort of our first charrette process, which was just to introduce the notion of collaboration. This second time it was to try to gather additional input, get more property owners and residents involved in the process, focus on specifics, get more specific with the kinds of improvements that we were beginning to talk about in line with the theme of this conference. We have a greenway area that passes right through the heart of the area we're talking about, and making connections to that whole greenway and making it more accessible to the neighborhoods was a critical piece. We wanted to broaden and be more creative about thinking about the relationships between the two municipalities and between the various issues we were dealing with. And we wanted to really encourage a lot more excitement about the opportunities. I wanted to wear a T-shirt that said, "I've survived 2 charrettes at the Pinnacle Center." But and when I say survive, it's partly because it's a very intense couple-of-day period there, and it's a great experience, and it opens your mind and opens your thinking, regardless of what position you're holding. And really, this is still an effort to get us started in this collaboration process. I've got a few slides. We kicked off our meeting with a public meeting. We brought in property owners and residents, went through a brainstorming process with them. We did talk about the study area. If you know Holland, this is US 31. This is Chicago Drive coming in. Our downtown sits here, and 8th Street runs out back to US 31 here and across. The study area was the area that's colored in this image. One of the first things we did, this gives you a sense, here's the city boundary, city-township boundary running through here. So it was really an area that embraced properties on both sides. One of the first things we do is go out and give a tour of the various charrette participants, get them familiar with this area. What we discovered and began to unfold, that there are some sub-areas within this, some targeted areas. I won't get into the substance of this. It's more the process that we went through and how important this process is to where we are today. We've uncovered a variety of concepts in each of those sub-areas. I'll use some graphics just to show you the kinds of products that can emerge out of this process. Again, we're trying to encourage excitement in this, excitement in our communities, excitement with our planning commissions and with our city council and with residents. That first resident meeting, the first evening, the concern, it was mostly concerned citizens who were worried about us coming in and putting a plan down for their neighborhood. By the time that evening ended and by the time this process went through, it was a much more integrated sort of process, and they're excited about what can happen here too. Just some of the graphics that identify some of those opportunities. A couple of plans that were developed in this show some different opportunities, physical design opportunities. The greenway that I talked about runs through the back here. One of the objectives is how to tie 2 neighborhoods into that greenway corridor. Lots of opportunities for major redevelopment that are occurring. Again, some of the images. Tung Do is here. GMB, David Wilkins from GMB was our design team leader, and Tung works with GMB. This is one of his illustrations. Just a great set of resources, all different kinds of illustrations that we've used to try to illustrate the opportunities for changes in this particular neighborhood. I think I'll turn it over to John and let John.
We definitely are short on time, so I'm going to cut this close. One of the things that you can see as we went through these graphics was the ability to explain through a picture. And the beautiful thing about a charrette, and I think part of the idea that we're up here is to try to convince some of you to think about getting into the charrette business or conducting a charrette, is that you do end up with resources that you can use at other meetings that convey images, that bring ideas that are from the outside. They're new ideas, they're ideas that have a fresh face, and we really encourage all the communities to think about using this process. You have the opportunity to bring the citizens in, you have the opportunity to bring experts in, and it really do provide you with lasting resources afterwards. And One other thing I want to say is that traditionally, land use projects have been a focus of a charrette, but there are other things that you might want to consider. If you're from a school district, you might want to think about a individual campus design or school integration or using something across several boundaries that would benefit the schools and to consider the charrette process. Maybe you have a drainage district that needs something creative in terms of how to integrate greenways along with the drainage district. And there are many opportunities to use the charrette process, and I know the Strategic Alliance is looking for ideas for charrette. So we would encourage you to think about community projects. Maybe not a land use project, but maybe some other type, and we'd really, really encourage you to do that. And to get in contact with the Strategic Alliance about how to make that happen. So I think we'll turn it over to...
Well, push the slide, we'll find out.
In the interest of time, everyone, I just want to clue you into what I'm thinking, and if anyone boos, I'm open to other suggestions. But my thought was, in respect for your time, instead of having sit down in here for a half hour or so for lunch, if we go ahead and give them the opportunity to let them tell you what their plan was for their session, have a quick survey, and then have a working lunch. So we'll go through the buffet line, get our lunch, and take it to the first breakout session. I'm seeing some nods. Okay, that's what I'd like to do. So if we could conclude here at the noon hour, we'll have a quick survey, and then we'll get our lunch. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm Roland Crummell, as introduced, and I'm going to step down here because I can't read that one up there. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and Deer Park on the corner of Whitehall Road and Riley Thompson in Muskegon County, and that evolved eventually to a park that Roger Jordan sold for $30 million to Cedar Fair people, and they've expended quite a bit of money in there to the point where there's hundreds of thousands of people trying to get in and out of that park during the days of the summer. And it led to a backup on US 31 North there. There were several hundred cars backed up on the right lane trying to get off the highway. And Progressive E&E did a study for Wimserdick, our local MPO, trying to address the area. MDOT addressed it. They made a wider drive-off area there on the side. But during that process and that traffic study, someone suggested that maybe we do a joint planning effort. So we got 5 townships together to create a planning commission out of their town board and one from planning commissioner. And it's the eastern part of the western townships and the western part of the eastern 5 townships, but it's the corridor there that this old Whitehall Road, US 31, and M120 comes down in that area to address the issue. And it was a successful planning effort, and it came up with a master plan for the area, but it was like a lot of master plans, and it didn't have the visual effect that a lot of master plans don't have. And when Bob Daverman came along, he talked about this charrette process, and we were all busy, and we really didn't want to commit to another project, and we're very lackadaisical in approaching it. But Bob persevered, and I'm really glad he did, because what this produced for us was something of a visual effort that we could give the communities. I'm going to flip through these really quick. Most of you are probably familiar with the area. How many have been to Michigan Adventure in here? Okay, so I'm not going to spend much time on these slides. That's what Michigan Adventure looks like. This is the one I wanted to focus on. We came up to 3 basic areas. One of them was a play zone that we kept, whoops. Hello. Yep. I forgot to tell you I was colorblind. We came up with a play zone up there, and that's around Michigan Adventure. A work zone that encompasses 2 industrial park areas. The Cordova site was one of the top 5 worst contaminated Superfund sites in the United States. And Bayer Crop Science here, a 400-acre owned by Bayer Crop out of Germany, and they've got plans to expand that much the way they do businesses in Germany now, in kind of an eco-park system. But then we decided we could just let that Whitehall Road develop like any other road, another 5-lane road between 2 communities. It's the connector between Muskegon and Whitehall. And we were working in the Charrette over here, and the Division Street people were working over here. So, and the coffee was over here, so I spent a lot of time going back and seeing what they were doing. And I asked one of them, when did Division Street become a 5-lane road? And they said about 75 years ago. And I thought, golly, we're only about 75 years behind them, because if we do nothing, this thing will just develop into another 5-lane road that 75 years from now, somebody's going to have to deal with it, trying to bring it back, and you'll get more into that when they do their charrette. So we thought of doing something different. And I don't remember what the street or the bridge was in Washington, D.C. If it's a Roosevelt Bridge, but you come over that, you drop down on a parkway there that goes right along the river. Absolutely gorgeous. It could have been developed with condos and homes. And so we thought about putting a parkway in there, clustering the developments around some of the major intersections, and making that the mixed use and the living, walkable communities, and having the play area, the living area, and the work zone. So that, and they provided, I don't know if they're all in here, just what some of those look. Yeah, that's the fun zone. We show some roundabouts in there. This is one of the hamlet areas on Tyler Road. That's currently an abandoned area right now. It was a commercial center umpteen years ago, but 3 of the 4 corners are all vacant, empty buildings, a tavern that was tore down. But you want to restore that, but you still have businesses along Whitehall Road. And we're trying to get them to move into a hamlet. What you need to be able to do is why should I move my barber shop off of this road so you can turn it into a parkway? Well, you give the guy an incentive. You build him a barber shop in the hamlet area there. And so one of our next projects is some kind of a tax capturing venue that we can capture some of that tax revenue to be able to do things like that. A closer view of what that might look like. You've seen these before, but and that's the work zone. It shows the 2 parts. The eco part of that Bayer Crop Sciences, they want to bring industries in that complement their process, so they can share some of their same even maintenance crews, some of the products or byproducts that they can work together on these things, and that's what they're proposing to do in there. That's the crop science project that we talked about. And these are some of the areas getting into the park off of US 31. That's the one of the hamlets there, and it's another hamlet there as it grows. And then keeping the fun area up here, the open area in between those hamlets. Side views of what some of the street scenes might look like. And that leads us into Division Avenue.